Ombre nails are one of the hardest nail art techniques you will ever master, but not today. Hey there again, I am Paola Ponce, a licensed manicurist and certified Japanese gel nail instructor. And today, I'm going to show you how to ombre nails stress-free. These 3 easy techniques that I am about to show you have helped me ombre nails in the salon faster than I could paint a French tip. So keep watching. Alright, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview here. We're going to work on these 3 types of ombres, and they're all single colors. So we have an orange and a kind of like bronzy and a baby boomer type ombre. Alright, so I'm going to use my trusty practice hand here, and I've already painted the base colors on. This is a little bit of a peachy color, a peachy nude that we're going to start off with. And to complement it, I'm going to use an orange color. This one's Bianca by Evil by Biosculpture. And I use My Leaf for the base. And again, that's sort of like a peachy nude. Alright, so you'll need your art palette or a lint-free surface. Some people use foil for this. I like to work with my nail art palettes here because they're very firm. And you'll grab a little dab of the color as well as a little dab of top coat. And the reason why you grab top coat over base coat is because top coat is a little bit more runny, so it definitely helps with your ombre techniques. You'll need a little piece of sponge, and the reason why you do not want to use the full sponge is because you don't want the product or a lot of product to absorb into the sponge. So you want to work with minimal product, and you also want to use like the edge of the sponge because it's got like these little teeth sort of things where you can take advantage of them and use them to ombre your nails a little bit better. And again, ombre is just a term for gradation or a gradient effect or a fading effect. Okay, they're all synonymous here. So you want to mix your color with the top coat, and that's again so you can have a little bit more of a runny consistency and obviously not a fully pigmented first coat. And from the get-go, I'm just going to give you the advice to just be ultra gentle and light-handed with all of these procedures here with ombre. Okay, the ombre is just that sort of wormhole that you can get into if you keep being persistent. Now, key thing here is to use your tweezers, and again, that's just so you can keep the surface lint free and just work with minimal product. And actually, it controls the amount of pressure you use to pick up product. So you always want to ombre about 2/3 of the nail. And the tip area is always going to be the most saturated area of the ombre technique or gradient technique, okay? So here I'm applying my first coat diluted with the sponge. And you can also use the brush if you wanted to, all the way 2/3, and then start kind of using your sponge to fade away the end of that. But again, the tip's always going to be the most concentrated part. For now, as a first layer, we just want to lay down the color, and then we'll worry about concentrating the tip area, okay? Now remember, don't freak out necessarily at the bubbles that you are getting. Just work very gentle and with a piece of the the foam, the sponge, so that you do not create a lot of these bubbles. So grab a little bit more color, and this time we're not going to dilute this layer, okay? We've cured our initial layer. We're going to pick up some product with our sponge again, and now we're going to focus on saturating half of the nail And in our next step, it'll be about the last part, the last third of our nail here. So again, don't worry too much about these of any like bubbles or anything like that, because your top coat will cover some of these. You want to just saturate about half of the nail as you're fading it upwards. This is, again, the current technique we're using is the sponge technique, which is kind of very popular actually, and I've done it, and it's worked for me. It also depends on the color. If you find yourself working with a very, very vibrant color, a very rich color, you'll want to dilute it like I did in the first step, which was using some top coat to dilute it. And again, that's because top coat is your thinnest formula, and it's like the most runny sort of consistency here, and you need that for this ombre technique. Okay, so again, you're just focusing on saturating half of the nail, up to half of the nail, and you never leave just a line, right? You never go like, oh, here's half, let me just draw this line here. No, you always want to kind of fade that middle line, or whatever line you're on. You want to fade it into the first part that you painted, right? When you're happy with that, you will go ahead and cure the nail. And we're doing full cures. Every time you're curing for this technique, you're going to be full curing. And it's gel, so take your time, find a place, or find the consistency that you want, and go ahead and cure. So again, the next, we're breaking this into 3 parts. We use color without diluting it. And you're focusing on the last third of the nail here to saturate that corner. As a last step, you could just grab the product with a clean brush and apply it, and then again, just fade that line if you wanted to. Or you can continue to use your sponge. When you're happy with that, you'll go ahead and cure it. Alright, as last step for this sponge gradient, you want to use your top coat and avoid using non-wipe. The reason for that is because non-wipe is very, very thin and has a little bit more of a hard gel consistency component to it. So any imperfections in the nail will definitely protrude through that non-wipe top coat. So you want to use your potted top coat, your potted gel top coat, or just your regular brush on top coat for the system that you're using, but make sure it's not non-wipe. Okay, that's because non-wipe is very, very thin, and all of those imperfections will show right through. And you can do 2 coats if you need to fix it. Just make sure they're thin coats, as they will blur. So the next ombre technique we are going to go over is a pigment technique. And for this, I'm using Jordan. The name is Jordan, and that's by Evo by Bio Sculpture. And this step here is very, very, very important, okay? When you paint this layer on, you'll want to give it a partial cure, and the amount is 10 seconds less than what you're supposed to be curing it. So if it's a 30-second cure it for 20 seconds. If it's 20 seconds, I will cure for 10 or 15 seconds. But it's very, very important not to over cure this layer, and pull back for about 10 seconds before full cure time. Now we're going to use this Additives Pigment by C&D and a makeup brush. This is like an e.l.f. makeup brush. It can be a very inexpensive eyeshadow brush. And you want to take the pigment and saturate your brush, and give it a little bit of a product before you start touching this tip area. If you just go directly from the pot to the brush to the tip, you start saturating this tip area here, you're not going to be able to move that product. It's just going to stay there, because remember, this base coat color is not fully cured, so it's just going to absorb it all at once, and you don't want that. So make sure you really disperse the product onto the brush before you start tapping it onto the nail. And once you're on the nail, you'll go little by little on the tip, and you only need one layer of this. You're gonna just use what's on your brush to get the full gradient effect here. You don't need to cure in between and add some more. This is it, okay? And remember, very important not to over cure. And if you need more product, just very gently tap your brush in the lid of the pigment, and then focus on saturating the tip of the nail as we did in our previous procedure. We start 2/3, or we want 2/3 of that nail ombre in, and we want to saturate the tip, okay? Once you're done with that, this technique will require that you use a base coat, okay? Because otherwise this pigment is going to chip off. So use a base coat to seal the pigment in. And when you've cured, you can cure it for about 10 seconds, the remaining of the 30 seconds, or you can do a full cure. And then you want to wipe your brush in between strokes here, because you don't want to pick up any glitter and then contaminate your base coat, okay? It should be, most of it is cured onto the nail, but sometimes obviously there's some loose stuff there. There's a little speck there. And then when you're happy, you'll go ahead and cure that. Very important to add a base coat after your application, and it's also very important not to fully cure the color, okay? You will not, it will not work out. You will not get this seamless, smooth application. When you're happy with that, go ahead and cure it and apply a top coat. So the next one we will be working on is the white baby boomer, it's called, and it's a very classic ombre, and it's also a very nerve-wracking ombre technique. And for this technique, I'm going to use the sponge again, but I'm going to incorporate a second step to it, okay? So whatever gel polish brand you're using, you'll want the brush for that, or you can use a clean brush, but I think that the color brush for that product that you're using is going to help you. You're also going to take top coat, a little dab of top coat in a pot, so that you can dilute this color. Now remember, for all of these techniques you want to be very gentle, but especially this white gradation or white ombre or baby boomer effect. So I'm going to take my product brush and I'm going to clean it, because I want to work with a clean brush here. You'll need a little piece of sponge again. The reason why we don't use a full sponge is because we don't want all of the color to be absorbed by the sponge and create more bubbles. And again, I'm going to mix my first layer, dilute my first layer. That's because white can be really, what's the word? Pigmented. It's just a very harsh color to try to dilute. If you have a milky white that you want to work with, instead of diluting or mixing your first layer, that's also an option. And remember, your goal here is to cover about 2/3 of the nail. Use your tweezers again so that you don't get any oil onto that sponge, and you have more precision, and you keep yourself very light-handed, and you don't get all this product on your fingers and on the sponge. So start at the tip and work yourself up to 2/3 of the nail. And you want to pat and work with a little bit of product again so that you don't create any of these not that you don't create any, but you don't create too much or huge bubbles that your top coat will not smooth out. And keep going until you are happy here. Alternatively, you could use your brush, paint that 2/3 of the way, and then start using your sponge. But I would practice with the sponge first so that you don't grab too much product. And then here, what you'll do now is take that clean brush and smooth out those imperfections, those little bubbles, right? Very, very important. You could also do this with the first technique. All right, you'll cure that, and after doing so, you'll do the same thing. And now the goal is to go up about halfway to the nail, through the nail here. And I'm working with a diluted white formula because again, white is a little bit of a harsh color and can be really, really hard to blend. Now notice for all of these techniques, I am just using the tip color to ombre or fade the nails here. I'm not using the base color. That is an option. It is totally up to you. But my point here is to be able to do a gradation rather quick in a service. So if you find that using the base color to use fade the nails works for you and makes the process a little bit better, then by all means. But just want to get you quickly through this process. And so you'll do the same technique of feathering with your brush. This adds more product to the nail, right? A little bit more product, but also, most importantly, it gets rid of any bubbles and helps smooth out any imperfections that you may have created with your sponge. And again, very, very important to use light pressure. Okay, the next step here for your baby boomer nail is to take that diluted white, and because it's so soft and it's diluted, you can actually put it right on the nail 2/3 of the way up and then work it out, because it's actually just going to enhance your application. It's not going to really mess it up per se or add too much. You can always remove it right before curing it rather than trying to cure it and then trying to remove it. That will obviously not work. So just work it in 2/3 of the way, and then do blend that line. Make sure you don't leave a line there, a solid line. Keep blending it until you're happy. And then keep retouching it until you're happy also. It's all about being happy. Now you see how this process is more easy with a blended or a diluted white. So your last layer here is just a top coat after you've gone and cure that. And you definitely want to avoid a non-wipe top coat here, because all of your imperfections are going to show through with a non-wipe. So use your potted top coat or just your regular wiping top coat that is offered with your system. And give that a full cure. And there you have it, our 3 techniques on how to ombre. I hope this video helped you, and if you learned something new in this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Just click on the subscribe button right now. And if you want exclusive techniques that I only share with subscribers, hop onto paolaponcenails.com and sign up to the newsletter. Now it's your turn. What technique from this video are you eager to try right now? Comment below. Thank you for watching. See you next time.